Welcome to episode 115 of Closer Mentality. I'm your host, Julia Mellett. At the inception of this podcast, my goal was to tell the stories of the minds of those with baseball closer mentalities. Today's guest is perfectly positioned to do so, and I'm excited to share his story and his knowledge with you today. So without further ado, meet Dr. Colt Olson. Dr. Olson was a dual sport athlete growing up in Castle Rock, Colorado, a suburb of Denver. He credits his cross-training in football and baseball for his drive and motivation, as well as his initial interest in psychology.
My first 2 years of college were at Montana State Billings. So I went there to play baseball. I was recruited by them out of high school. And it was a pretty standard process. I think I had come into contact with the coach somehow or another. He saw me play a couple times, liked where I was at, and he was like, yeah, hey, we'd love to have you up here. We can offer you this amount of money, this type of scholarship, these opportunities. And I was like, all right, sweet, right on. So ended up going up there, and I really enjoyed it. It was a great place. I had never been to Montana prior to going to school there. But I loved it up there. Billings was a great city. I met a ton of great people. Baseball didn't really work out the way I wanted it to up there. I don't know. Things just didn't work out the way I wanted. And I kind of grew in a weird way physically. I got bigger and stronger and faster as a baseball player, more so than I thought I was going to. And I felt like I was turning into more of a football player physically. And I was like, hey, baseball's not working. Maybe I should go try to play football. I was a good football player in high school. I'll see what I can do. And I had a buddy at the time, one of my best friends was playing football at Colorado Mesa. So I reached out to him and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about coming to play football. You think I could jump on the squad? And he was like, yeah, definitely. And that coach had recruited me very briefly out of high school for football as well. So I reached out to him and was like, hey, I'm thinking I'm going to come play football. Do you have a spot for me? And he was like, yeah, sure. There was no scholarship opportunity, but he was like, yeah, come out. You're not going to get cut or anything. So just come out. So I went out to play football, and I ended up hurting my shoulder pretty bad. The first week of practice, I tore my labrum really, really bad right away. So I didn't play at all that season, got shoulder surgery. But in addition to not playing, I hated it. It was just not for me. College football was not my thing. And I'll never forget, at Mesa, the football practice field was connected to the baseball practice field. So our end zone, it was a huge outfield, but the end zone essentially went into the outfield of the baseball practice field, and the infield was on the other side. And I just remember in the fall standing at practice, watching them play baseball. And I was like, damn, I wish I was playing baseball. So didn't enjoy it. It wasn't for me. So I had shoulder surgery in the off season. And then in the spring, I had to just rehab. In the following year, I had 2 years of eligibility left. I redshirted my freshman year. And so I was like, hey, I think I'm going to try to play baseball again. And Mesa has a good baseball team, very good Division II baseball team. So the year prior in 2014, they had lost in the national championship game. And coming back, it was a lot of the same guys. I remember telling my parents I wanted to play baseball, and they were like, hey, just so you know, you might not make the team. And I was like, yeah, whatever. But I went out there, met with the coach, Coach Hanks, and then told him I wanted to come out. I'm a left-handed pitcher. And he was like, yeah, come out, come see how it goes in the fall. And then he just it was this weird thing where he just never told me I couldn't come to practice anymore. So I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm on the team. Let's just keep showing up. And then it worked out. And I ended up playing. Even you look at people who are fantastic athletes, at the highest level, people like Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders, two sport legends. There was one sport that they really liked, that they were really all into. And then another sport they were just really, really good at. So they played it too. So yeah, no, like I said, I loved baseball, and I loved playing high school football. It was great. And I loved the sport of football, but I knew right away, when practice started, it was not going to be my thing. So yeah, it was definitely always baseball for me.
At the University of Colorado Mesa, Olson found his passion. Neuroscience became his focus, and the brain's ability to determine success and motivation piqued his interest. Even so, he admits that the transposing of the principles he learned in the classroom onto his athletic success never occurred to him.
I maybe thought I didn't need it. I see a ton of athletes now. You think you don't need it, right? It's no, I just need to work harder at baseball and I'll be a better baseball player. I almost wasn't even at the point where I was drawing a connection to what I'm learning in the classroom and on the field. I never understood that for as much physical work as I'm doing, I should probably do some work on the mental end as well. And some of the stuff I was presented was more like, oh, sports psychology and team dynamics and all that. So short answer is no, I didn't really implement it. I wish I would have. In the long run, a couple years out when I did my master's, I was like, man, it would have made me a lot better if I had taken some of this stuff to heart, but it worked out the way it should have in the end, I think.
One of Olson's undergraduate professors was, at the time, consulting with Mesa's volleyball team on performance psych. But it wasn't until a chance encounter with the Pittsburgh Pirates sports psychology staff at spring training that Olson's path truly clicked.
And they were like, hey, we're doing these things down here where we're using these principles to help people perform better. And I just thought it was really cool. I thought it was super interesting. So being around them and seeing some of the work they had done, and I think being down there and seeing exactly how it looked in a baseball setting was really exciting to me. So really that was my first exposure to it. And I always like to read. I read a lot of books, things like that as well. So it was sort of the books, but a lot of just meeting these people that were doing the work and being like, I'd like to do that work.
He opted to specify the direction of his career with a master's degree in sport and performance psychology from the University of Idaho. It was there that he realized how, in both stark and nuanced ways, the perfection of sports psychology could change someone's life.
I knew I wanted to work in sports. I honestly, like looking back, I didn't have a super specific goal with that degree. I was like, hey, I want to work in sports psychology. Maybe it's baseball, maybe it's elsewhere. I always kind of had this feeling. I was like, I'm just going to go there because I know I love to do this. I know I love this work. I'm super interested in it. I'm good at it. I just want to go up there and I want to see where it takes me. So I was really kind of open to whatever happened. I wanted to get the experience, wanted to learn, wanted to be around somebody. My advisor, his name was Damon Burton, was kind of an OG in the field. Like he came up in the 70s. He was the first ever sports psychology professional employed at a university. So he was an OG. He'd been through it all. I was like, I'm going to learn from this guy, get some experience and see what happens. And then the baseball thing kind of snuck its way in while I was there, and it ended up working out. But I just wanted to learn. I wanted to really see what it was all about, see how it was going to work from a professional perspective, and then kind of see what roads opened up for me. So I was really just open to experience.
At this point, he was also confronted with the fact that even athletes who wanted to engage with the sports psych principles he was teaching sometimes didn't know where to begin.
First of all, you have to teach somebody self-awareness. You have to bring awareness to this idea that you need these concepts to get better. And they need to learn where they're at right now. We need to understand where they want to go, help them understand that there is a gap between those two things. You're here, you want to be here. There's a big space in the middle. So we need to identify what that growth looks like. So they have to develop self-awareness, and they need to understand that that's an ongoing process. Like, hey, you're going to learn about yourself and you need to audit yourself, check in consistently to make sure you're moving in the right direction. And we need to patch up any holes along the way. So absolutely have to teach them self-awareness. You have to teach them the importance of controlling the controllables. This is a super underrated and simple piece of sports psychology, but it's really difficult. You have to understand that if you're going to grow in a big way here, you got to let go of the things you can't control and go all in on the things you can control, which is not many things. You're going to end up letting go of a lot of stuff here. All the things you want to control, all the outcomes you want, can't control them. So we're going to figure out what you can control and then go all in on that. We always teach them. I like to teach self-talk right away. I think, and really the way I teach it is I frame it as high quality thinking. So most people don't choose their thoughts. Most people just have thoughts pop into their head, they roll with them, and then their behaviors follow accordingly. So we teach guys right away, you have to be a gatekeeper of your thoughts. You need to learn right now that not every thought you have is going to serve you. And so when something pops into your head, you need to be able to hold on to it for a sec, look at it, decide, okay, is this going to make me better in the moment, or is it useless? Is it ego driven? Is it going to set me back? What is this thought? Okay, if it's good, let's roll with it. If not, let's kick it out. And you need to become a master of doing that. You have to be a gatekeeper of your thoughts, because if you don't have those high quality thoughts, you can't perform in an elite fashion. I was taught really early, the golden rule of mental performance is everything starts with a thought. Thoughts become beliefs and beliefs become actions. So if you want to perform in an elite fashion, you got to think in an elite fashion first. So teaching that high quality thinking principle is key. That's where it all starts. And then along with that, I mentioned self-talk, that internal dialogue is really important. Helping people understand resilience and nonlinear growth is also very important, especially in baseball. Like, dude, this is not going to be a straight line up for you. I know you think it is and you want it to be so bad, but it's not and it can't be. So let's figure out how we're going to bounce back. You need to learn to fail the right way. We say fail like a pro. Everybody fails. It's not that the people who are where you want to be right now fail less than you or failed less than you. They've just figured out how to do it a little bit better. So let's start failing the right way now. Developing the right relationship with adversity. What else? We always teach confidence pretty early too, and helping guys understand what that actually is, because that's a concept that gets very murky, funky. You hear it talked about a lot, like, hey, be confident, and then no one really knows what that feels like or how they're supposed to get there. They're just like, they see somebody and they're like, yeah, that's a confident person, be like them. So we teach guys what confidence actually looks like, how to actually develop it, tools for maintaining, and how to handle the days where you don't feel confident, because that's a real thing too. So that was kind of a lot, but that's probably a decent starter pack.
Olson completed his master's and subsequent PhD in educational psychology from the University of Northern Colorado. Then, the opportunity he'd been planning for manifested right in front of him: the mental skills coordinator position within the Colorado Rockies organization. Suddenly, everything he'd been interested in since his first high school psychology class was paying off with the perfect job in his home state. He was immediately thrust into the atmosphere, helping newly drafted players learn about the impact of his sports psych teachings. Many came into professional baseball with a rudimentary understanding of the mental game, but some, Olson has had to help cultivate the mental edge from the ground up.
And it makes it easier generally because they're willing to engage with it. I mean, it just, the door's already been open, and not only do they know it exists, but they understand that it is a part of their development as an athlete now. Because in previous years, like even when I was playing, like, my last year was 2016. Like when I look at the players we have in our organization who are close to my age, and even based on my experience, what I do was never a part of the game. And it's not that they're resistant to it. It's just not seen as a part of your development like it is for the younger guys now. So that makes it a lot easier. They're super open to it. They're interested in it. They have some experience. They know the basics. It's awesome. There are times where guys have to unlearn some things. Maybe they've picked up, just like you can pick up bad habits physically, maybe they've learned things incorrectly along the way and they need to have some things tweaked around. But generally it makes it way easier, and it makes our work more impactful, I think.
It's the relationship building, he says, that has become his favorite part of the job.
For me, this is the most important part of the job. The relationship is everything. Because if we don't have a relationship and we don't have trust, we are going to go nowhere. So, and that a lot of the time in my job looks like me just being around. Like in the baseball world, I mean, there are guys that show up right away and they want to dive in, they want to go deep. But there are also a lot of guys who show up and they're skeptical. They want to know if I'm dishing out is BS or not, which is fair. And I respect that. And one of the things that I do is, like, I'm just going to be around. I'm going to make sure they know me. I'm going to make sure we have plenty of conversations that are real and intimate, but maybe not even necessarily baseball or performance related. Like, I just want you to know that I'm a human being here with you and I care about you. Like, I'm here for your development. And along with that, I don't force anything. There are times where guys need to hear something from me. And occasionally I have to speed up this process, but more often than not, it's just, it takes time. I mean, there are guys that I have spent 3 years with, just talking with and building a relationship with. And then finally 3 years down the road, they're like, hey, Colt, I need to talk. I'm struggling. And I'm like, all right, dude, let's roll. So being around, being present, letting them know, like, I don't have an agenda. I'm not going to force you to do anything. I'm just a resource for you, is really important. I know generally, so I've only taken one counseling class ever. It was during my PhD. I had to take it. And one of the things I disagreed with in a big way in that class was the professor was like, hey, you need to not share about your life in a counseling setting. And in my line of work, I think that's imperative because it shows vulnerability, and you can't get vulnerability unless you give it. So I I'm an open book. Like, you want to know how I played in college? I played terribly, dude. I sucked. Like, I'm not afraid to tell you this. Like, you want to hear about how I handle these situations, what's going on in my life? Like, absolutely. This is building a relationship. Then they're willing to come to me too. So just being around, being present, treating them like a normal person, and then being vulnerable and sharing, I think are two ways that have really, really helped me build strong relationships and put me in the right place with guys. And it gives me a chance to help them when the time's right. So we draft a bunch of dudes in July. Right when we draft them, we go down to Scottsdale and they all come down and we spend 4 days with them. We meet everybody individually, spend time talking, hang out with them. So the relationship starts there. And then some of them will go out to affiliate teams, which mean if they do is great because we'll see them again out there. And then at the end of the season, like late September into October, we have another camp that's about 3.5 weeks long, instructional league, where all those guys are there. So we get to spend an additional 3 to 4 weeks ish getting to know them, working with them, being with them in a competitive setting, and just building that relationship. So we have that block. And then in the off season, there's always communication. We have another camp in January that gives us another chance to talk to them. Then in spring training, obviously, we have 4 to 6 weeks ish where we get to spend a lot of time. So those camps and where we're seeing guys every day, that's where it has to happen. Because it's hard. Like, we get guys throughout the season, we trade for people, we sign a free agent, and they show up, and we just meet them somewhere. I roll into like Hartford one day, and I'm like, "Hey, bro, I'm Colt. Nice to meet you." And sometimes they're interested, and sometimes they're not. So those camps and that time is critical because we're just around each other all the time. So that's where the magic is. And then it's a lot of guys, but we do our best to meet with everybody during those camps. So in spring training, that's 160 people we meet with. And then we have at least a plan. So the next time we see him, there's something for us to talk about. So that's generally how it ends up working. So we're very fortunate with the Rockies that we are very involved. The mental skills team is super involved almost every day. They value what we do. And because of that, they give us space like throughout the day. So like I said, lots of individual meetings, which that's how it trends toward in the season. So we'll always have individual meetings, but during spring training and a lot of these camps, we get to have group sessions, which is fantastic. So like during instructional league, our fall camp, we have a group session every single day for that camp. We get them in the theater and they're short, 15 minutes, but we have a group session every single day. Then during spring training, we'll get a few group sessions. It's a little bit harder because it's just so many people, but we'll get pitchers at least once, infielders, outfielders, catchers, everybody at least once in a group session. Then we'll do so for position players, we'll have a station outside when they're going through batting practice. We'll be a station. So they'll go from shagging in the outfield to bunting to hitting. Then they'll come into us and we'll have a meeting for 10 minutes during their batting practice. With pitchers, at least 2-3 days a week, we run visualization bullpens where we get them up on the mound and we just do visualization practice. You go through your windup, you work on pitches you're trying to execute, you work on navigating difficult situations, visualizing yourself getting through them, all that stuff. And then we have a ton of individual meetings on top of that. We'll also meet with staff too. So generally we get a good mix. In a camp as big as spring training, we get a good mix. Some group, small group, individuals, and then during instructs, we get big group and then individual. And then in the season, it becomes, in the season, whenever I go to an affiliate, I like to do a group session. If I'll always talk to the manager, whoever, and be like, "Hey, is there something you want me to touch on here?" Get them in the clubhouse for 20 minutes and do a group session. But then it's primarily individuals.
Dr. Olson explains to his athletes that they have to become an architect of their mentalities. Mental growth is not a facet of the game that exists automatically. It's crafted through thousands of positive repetitions.
When you think about what an architect does, an architect will have this idea and come up with a blueprint and show everybody what needs to be built. But generally, they have this idea, this conceptual, they've conceptualized this thing that's meaningful and they want to build it. So becoming the architect of your mentality means, number one, having a vision for what you want your mentality to be. Architects are visionaries, they're creators. So you have to think about for yourself, okay, who do I want to be from a mental perspective? How do I want to think? How do I want to perform under pressure? What's my day-to-day look like from, my thinking perspective? And then after you have that vision, you put that blueprint together, meaning you put some specifics in place that are actions. Okay, well, I have to take these actions, these actions. This is something I have to do every day. This is my routine here. So I can piece together this brain, this mentality that serves me best. That's generally the way I think about it. When you think of, mental architecture is just the foundation, the blueprint for what's going to make you a great performer on the mental end. One of the measurements I used was actually a scale that was developed in sport for it's called motivational climate. And it has to do with the way coaches typically treat athletes and the environment you create as a coach. So number one, and again, it's like in simplest terms, it's like you need to create an environment that isn't hung on results, that you're not embarrassing people, is generally psychologically safe. People are available to take risks and they can come to you if they have problems. That's what it is. So that one rings true for sure as someone who's in a dugout and working with coaches, helping them understand that this is a real thing. And the climate you create absolutely will dictate performance. That was a big piece. And then also, one of the most important theories that I used in my dissertation is constructivism, which is a learning theory. And it presents the idea that I can't just give somebody knowledge. So if I'm explaining a concept to you, I can't just tell you what it is and beam it into your head. As I talk about it, you hear it and then you construct that knowledge based on the knowledge you already have and integrate it into those pathways that already exist. That's how learning really occurs. And again, as I work with people or as coaches work with people, reminding them that you can't just tell them something and expect them to know it. Just because you explain a concept does not mean they've got it. Everybody has to create knowledge in their own way. So this can't be like a banking model where you expect them to come up, give you a question, you give them an answer, send them on their way. You have to help them construct knowledge, understand what they already know, what they don't know, and try to make it make sense to them in their own way. I think that's been a big thing for me because for me, teaching athletes and working with athletes, it's all the same stuff. I'm helping them learn concepts and implement them into their life. That means they have to make them their own. So that one, the constructivism piece, has been a big part of what I do.
Is something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals? Regardless of if you have a clinical mental health issue like depression or anxiety, or if you're just a human in this world going through a hard time, therapy can give you the tools to approach your life in a positive way. That's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp's mission is to make therapy more affordable and more accessible. This is an important mission because finding a therapist can be really hard, especially when you're limited to the options just in your area. BetterHelp is a platform that makes finding a therapist easier because it's online, it's remote, and by filling out a few questions, BetterHelp can match you to a professional therapist in as little as a few days. It's easy to sign up and get matched with a therapist. If this sounds like something that could help you, there's a link in the show notes to get you started on your therapy journey. It's betterhelp.com/closer mentality. Clicking that link helps support this channel, but it also gets you 10% off your first month of BetterHelp. Because finding a therapist is a little like dating. If you don't really fit with the therapist matched with you, it's easy and free to switch therapists without stressing about insurance, who's in your network, or anything like that. So if you're struggling, consider online therapy with BetterHelp. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/closer mentality. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/closer mentality. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this channel. Did you know that you can purchase audiobooks directly from your favorite local bookstore? With Libro FM, you can pick from more than 325,000 audiobooks, including bestsellers and recommendations from real booksellers. You'll get the same audiobooks at the same price as the largest audiobook company out there, you know the name. But you'll be part of a different story, one that supports your local community. If you're new to audiobooks, they're the perfect way to squeeze more reading into your busy life. Listen with the free Libro FM app while you do chores, walk the dog, or relax at home. If you already love audiobooks and don't know what to listen to next, check out recommendations from the people who know best, booksellers. Closer Mentality has partnered with Libro FM on a special offer. Through the link in the show notes, you can get 2 audiobooks on Libro FM for the price of 1. Offer only valid for new members in Canada and the US. Thanks to Libro FM for sponsoring this podcast. Dr. Olson loves working specifically with pitchers. A southpaw himself, the pitcher exhibits his favorite sports-like modalities in real time. The mound mentality is different for every single pitcher in the rotation. And Dr. Olson loves feeding off of their energies and helping them fine-tune their reset routines.
Yeah, it's interesting because you have like both two ends of the spectrum that are successful, right? You have the crazy nutso dudes who can come out and it's wild thing from Major League, right? They're fired up, they're crazy. I think when you have guys like that, it's just like that's their default. That's just who they are. And they live within the chaos so well because it's almost like they are the chaos. Right? They come out there and they're driving this whole thing and it's like, dude, there's no moment bigger than me because I'm it. This is the whole deal. So they're going to come out and just go crazy. I think that works really well. And then you have the kind of cold-blooded assassin type. Like we have a guy right now in our organization. He's a young guy, and his name is Seth Halverson. He was in the big leagues last year. He is nasty, and he is so even-keeled, calm, like no emotion ever. And I think conversely, compared to the other guy, that mentality, it works almost the same way where it just doesn't matter. The heart rate never changes. The thinking never changes. There's only one mission, regardless of what happens. I'm just going to throw, and that's it. Like, it just doesn't matter. They're almost like it's just bulletproof, and you can keep bouncing stuff off them, and it just like doom, 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 doesn't matter. So I think you do have to be one or the other. It helps to be one or the other, where you can come in every day is a new day, and you're just going to go throw. I actually had a good conversation with a guy. He was our rookie ball pitching coach a long time ago, actually not a long time ago, but in 2018, one of the first guys I met, his name was Doug Jones. And he was a closer for a long time in the big leagues, really good career. And I asked him one day about being a closer. I was like, what was the big thing for you that made you so good? And he was like, I decided that strikes and runs count the same in the ninth inning as they do the first inning. And he was like, that took any pressure off me because it's like, it's just strikes and pitches and runs. It's all the same. And so he kind of embodied that like cold-blooded, just silent killer type that works. But yeah, you got to be one or the other for sure. You have to be able to handle the chaos.
Dr. Olson also gave a nod to Major League Baseball's pitch clock implementation. 15 seconds gives barely any time to run through a detailed reset routine between pitches. And Olson said that it's been a learning curve regarding how he consults with anxious pitchers.
There was a little bit at first, just because it sped guys up. Like, I mean, one of the things we teach everybody as a pitcher and a hitter, you have to have a routine between pitches. You have to have a set of actions that you can rely on to create some consistency in your behaviors and your thoughts. So for a lot of guys, that meant trimming those down because, the pitch clock is, 15, 18 seconds, and you have to be engaged at a certain point. So it's really like a 10-second routine. So it was a little bit of a hiccup at first. But honestly, it's been a good thing because it's like you got to trim the fat on those routines, man. Like you can't, jump up and down and clack your cleats 4 times in a row because it makes you feel better anymore. Not that anybody did that, but the silly things that, people might want to do are gone now. So it's created some efficiency, which I think is great. It forces guys to only do the stuff they need to do. We're going to give you one thought, and it's really just whatever in the moment gets you back into that spot. So like when we teach routines, particularly in-game routines, we use the signal light model, green, yellow, red, right? Green light, you're cruising, everything's good. Yellow light, things are changing. Your emotions are maybe starting to get the best of you. You need to slow things down, make an adjustment. And then red light is you're fired up, you're emotional, almost out of control. You need a hard reset. So like in game, green light, you have your typical between pitch routine, right? It might be you catching the ball, swiping the rubber, one quick breath and a mantra, go. Yellow light routine, maybe you mix in one more physical reset with one additional mantra or an additional deep breath, and then you go. And then the red light routine would probably exist in the dugout in between innings or when someone was calling time. So we personalize it for everybody, but it's like going through that signal light process. We want to make sure guys understand what it's going to take for them to get back. Like, hey, we need to know what you're usually like when you get into a yellow or red situation, and then what you can do to get yourself back into control. And like I said, that's going to be 1 to 2 things. Like you only have 15 seconds. You only have time for 1 to 2 things. We make guys breathe. A breath is non-negotiable for us. So one of the things you're going to do is breathe. But apart from that, like maybe it's a physical reset button on your glove. Maybe it's you're going to swipe your hat or whatever. Maybe it's, swiping the rubber off, whatever it is, or it's a certain mantra you use. But you have to be super efficient. You get one thought, one intention, and then a physical action plus a breath, go. That's what we give them.
An additional note to make is the delineation between the mentalities and routines of athletes in stop-motion sports, like baseball and football, and continual sports, like swimming and basketball.
Like I say in football, you don't have to be much of a deep thinker because you just don't have time to. Like, unless you play quarterback where you have to do a bunch of different stuff, you have like maybe, 20 seconds. And part of that 20 seconds is you getting the play and being told what your responsibilities are going to be. Then you have to process and then you go. So it's really not even 20 seconds. So there's room for mental skills like with quarterbacks and things like that in football, and a lot of special teams positions like kickers, punters, things like that. But a lot of them, it's not really in their wheelhouse. They're not super interested. Like I said, teaching guys, we can go into a football player and be like, hey, you play safety. Like, here's what I believe is the best place for you to be mentally as a safety. Like, here's what the mentality of a safety looks like. And here's where you need to be every single play to perform your best, decision-making wise, to be a physical player, all that stuff. That works. And if it's a quarterback, it's different because we can talk about decision-making, thinking, routines, letting go, stuff like that. But football, there's not much. I do some work in basketball. Basketball, there's a little more mental skills than football. I've found that it becomes a little more general just in terms of like, here are the mentality shifts that will allow you to be a successful basketball player. We talk a lot about moving on from failure, failing like a pro, having a killer instinct, being able to finish games, things like that. So there's a little more in basketball. I can't say I've ever worked with a rugby player, so I don't know. I don't know what it's like in rugby, but generally there's a difference between the stop motion where you have a lot of time to think and you have to think versus the ones where it's fast and you can almost just be instinctual.
Are you an athlete rehabbing from an injury? Are you a coach or athletic trainer seeking additional support for your injured athlete toolkits? KT Tape has exactly what you need. KT Tape is a rehabilitation tape that helps stabilize and compress sensitive areas of the body during exercise. Apply KT Tape to an area either in pain or in recovery and feel the difference. KT Tape is comfortable, stable, and long-wearing. There's tape for all modes of action, from gentle, which is safe for easy activity and everyday use, to pro extreme, for athletes in moderate to high-impact exercise. KT Tape makes water-resistant tape as well for a more adaptable rehabilitation implementation. KT Tape caters to lifelong athletes and focuses on reducing muscle soreness for all users when worn during exercise and up to 48 hours post. Are you an athlete in need of prescription sports goggles or sunglasses? Today's final sponsor may have just the solution for you. A Sight for Sport Eyes was created when founder Shannon Knight saw a niche that was perpetually going unfulfilled. A Sight for Sport Eyes grew out of a need for education surrounding the impact of sport-related eye injuries and their lasting repercussions. A Sight for Sport Eyes runs like a regular optical practice, not an e-commerce store. Their goal is to give you the same high-quality service and name-brand lenses made by the best optical laboratories in the country, geared specifically for athletes and athletic use cases. If you need new lenses or frames, A Sight for Sport Eyes is the perfect place to get them. The links to BetterHelp.com, Libro FM, KT Tape, and A Sight for Sport Eyes are all in the show notes. Now, let's get back to the episode. Dr. Olson works with a myriad of athletes experiencing slumps and the yips. Although he deals with each athlete as their own case, he tends to implement the same general roadmap back to success.
Slumps are a lot easier than the yips. So slumps, generally, I tell guys this is the least sexy answer you're going to get through a slump, but we need to take a big reset and we need to go all in on the controllables, and having a process that puts you in a position to perform your best, helps you feel like you're in control, and just, it helps you compete. Because what I see happen is when most guys get in slumps, they chase outcomes. Like you're 0 for 15, 20, you're dying to get a hit. All you're thinking about, and we hear him say it all the time. Hey, I just need to get a double. I need to get a bomb right here. I need to hit something at 110 miles an hour. And it's like, dude, if you're focused on hitting a double, you're never going to get out of this thing. And I'm always like, how do guys usually get out of slumps? Like, well, a lot of times it's like a broken bat flare single that falls over the second baseman's head. Like a pitch you got beat on that you just end up getting a bat on. So I'm like, all right, let's figure out what you're doing right now. Like, what are you doing well? What controllables are you controlling in the batter's box? Okay, you're doing those. Okay, so what are we missing? We'll figure out what you're doing right, what you're not doing right in terms of your controllables. Then we'll turn all the we'll go all in and be like, okay, we have guys identify what makes an at bat successful for you outside of results. So you can't tell me getting a hit makes an at bat successful for you, because you can do everything wrong and get beat super bad and end up getting a hit. That happens all the time. Just like in the opposite, you can do everything right and be so dialed in the box and take the best swing of your career, and it's going to go right into the shortstop's glove. So we go, okay, what makes an at bat successful for you? And it's the same things. It's pretty much universal. Sticking to my plan or my approach, swinging at pitches I should swing at, not chasing, hard contact, going deep into a count, all things like that. And so we make a checklist. Okay, here are your 5 qualities of a successful at bat. We're going to focus on all of these. These are your only intentions when you get in the box, are accomplishing these things. And if you come back and it's like, yep, I was 3 for 5, successful at bat, no matter what happens. If I was 2 for 5 or 1 for 5, it wasn't. Why wasn't I successful? Let's make the adjustment. So we make sure we're controlling their controllables, and then we make sure they have a routine that they're working through every day that is putting them in a position to perform well physically, mentally, strategically, but it's also going to focus a lot on controllables. So we just get them away from an outcome focused, make sure their daily work is the right way, and they're evaluating themselves correctly. And that usually puts them in a place to find their way out of the slump. The yips is really hard. It's a super tough one. And it's an interesting thing because it shows up differently for everybody. Shows up for a different reason. It's physically presented in a different way. It's perceived differently by everybody. So it has to be super individualized. Like, then there are some guys that they get the yips and it's frustrating, but they want to attack it head on. They're like, hey, I'm going to work through this. I'm going to fight my way through this. And we'll put together some drills, like throwing drills, that will help them loosen up and get more unconscious with their throwing. Because like the yips is just when something that's typically unconscious, you don't have to think about, becomes super conscious and you're thinking about it way too much. So we do some drills to help them, get fluid, get unconscious again with it. But sometimes, it can be a really long process. Like, it could be years of just talking and helping and working through those emotions you're feeling and getting to the point where you're comfortable with a plan to get better. So there's no easy answer for that one, but you got to know the player, and you can't force them into anything. I found that trying to force somebody's hands with that doesn't do anything but make it worse typically. So you got to know the guy you're with.
As much as many sports psych principles are akin to basic checklists, Dr. Olson adds that practitioners have to remain adaptable. No 2 clients will react the same, and part of the intricacy of working with elite athlete mental health becomes the practitioner's ability to find resolution in an innovative way.
A great quote that I heard was, we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. So generally, people need to be reminded of principles all the time. We forget things really fast. One of the things I've come to realize is that the recipe for success is very simple, but very difficult. And it generally requires you doing the basics really, really well, repeatedly for a long time. So I think that's something we need to help guys understand. And a lot of innovation, creativity for us is like, hey, can I find a new, creative, innovative way to teach this foundational principle? And that's critical, because the way, like, everybody hears things differently. And I can't tell you how many times I've worked with guys and I've told them the same thing 15 different ways, and it's the 15th way that they're like, oh, that's it, right? So we have to reinforce. We have to remind people of what's important, but we also have to be very creative and innovative in terms of how we're teaching these things. And I think that's something we do a pretty good job of. The way we teach things internally, we evolve. We get feedback, we figure out what's working, what's not, what guys like, what they don't like, and we'll adjust. And we've come a long way from where we started. Because at first you're just doing stuff you don't know. But yeah, I think it's a good balance, right? You have to be creative and innovative, but you also have to remind people all the time of these basic principles that are going to get them to where they want to go. Going to grad school, they teach this stuff, and you learn like the mental tools and the basics, the ins and outs of sports psych. And you have this weird idea that, like, okay, I'm going to go work in this field and someone's going to come up to me one day and be like, hey, Colt, I'm struggling with my self-talk. Can you help me reprogram it? And I will be like, why, yes, I can. Here are the ways you do that. And it's just like that never, ever happens. Like, I think along the way, I've learned to, number one, I've learned to ask way better questions. That's something that's been so important for me because, like I said, a lot of times guys don't know what they don't know. And I have to learn to ask exactly the right question in that moment that will help them realize what I'm trying to teach them or will give me the information I need to give them the right tools back. So I've become way better at asking questions. I've also become way better at watching and observing and seeing holes or gaps real time, which just takes a lot of practice. It just takes reps. And I think along with that too is I've learned to navigate conversations and find what people need without them really telling me because they don't know how to say what they're dealing with. They just know it feels wrong. They're struggling and they don't want to feel like that anymore. So reading into what they're saying, knowing personalities and all that has been a big area of growth. So there's just been a ton of growth. And I think too, I've become a lot more creative. I've become a lot more confident in what I do. And that just comes with reps, but it also is a result of trying different things and not being married to some approach that I was taught was going to work. Like, just because they taught me this in grad school, like doesn't mean I have to do it here. I need to do what works. So I'm going to do what works. So there's been a lot of growth in a lot of areas for sure.
You can keep up with Dr. Olson's work in the majors on LinkedIn and via his socials at drcolt_. If you'd like to watch he and I's full interview, it's available at the Closer Mentality Uncensored YouTube channel. Otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in to episode 115 of Closer Mentality. As always, I'm your host, Julia Mellett. See you next week.